party that wants to defend privacy, I think then we will get the youth to look at us again, because I think they're interested in that. Another big issue that I think is a liberty issue is the idea of indefinite detention. On the National Defense Authorization Bill a year, maybe 2 years ago now, they added a provision that says that if you're accused of terrorism or associated with terrorism, you can be sent to Guantanamo Bay forever. And so I was debating Senator McCain on the floor, and I said, do you think an American could be accused of this and sent with no trial, no jury trial forever, with no process to have someone defend them? He said, yeah, if they're dangerous. I said, well, doesn't that beg the question, who gets to decide if you're dangerous or not? Here's some of the criteria that the government has in their printing about who could be terrorists. So you may be thinking to yourself, oh, people are strapped on bombs and they're suicide bombers. Yeah, we all want to stop them. We're talking about people who might have sent an email to their cousin in Lebanon. No. So if you're an Arab American living in this country and you send an email, shouldn't you get a trial before you're sent to Guantanamo Bay? But the thing about this is the government's put out some criteria on who might be terrorists. Has multiple guns in the house. I'm not going to ask for anybody. But that might be a few of you. Likes to pay in cash. This is getting really personal. Has changed the color of their hair. I'm not going to ask for show of hands on that one either. Stains on your clothing. Missing fingers on your hand. This was put out by the Department of Justice as people who potentially have the other one having more than 7 days of food. That would be most of the state of Utah. And then they tell you at the bottom, see something, say something. So you're supposed to report your neighbor if they've got missing fingers, food in their house, guns in their house, weatherized ammunition was another one. I mean, if that's the criteria for who might be a terrorist, I would think I'd want a trial before they send people on. I think issues like this, though, are issues of justice. And the reason why I think not only the issue we should talk about, think about in our country when we've had a failure at really providing justice for everyone. There's been a time in our history when we locked up every Japanese American in World War II. It was a huge mistake, and it's still one of the worst things probably we did in our history was to do that. And we're not doing that now, but it is a part of our history. We should think about it before giving someone the power to indefinitely detain somebody. And the president says, I'm never going to do that. I'm a good man. I would never do that. I'm going to sign the law, but I would never do that. But the thing is, it's not even about this president. It's about the next president or the next president. It's about, do you have the authority? It's what I asked him with drones. My wife still gives me a hard time because that sometime in the 13 hours, I apparently said that you don't want a drone ruining your cafe experience. And I didn't really think that he was going to drop a drone on my cafe experience. I really don't think he is, innately evil. But I wanted him to say he didn't have the authority. To me, it's a constitutional question. It's not about whether he would do it or that I'm a good man, I won't do it. It's, do you have the authority to do it? Do you know that you're bound by the Constitution? That we have a right to a trial by jury, we have a right to be charged, we have a right to a lawyer, that all of that exists? Or don't you believe that? And so to me, it was a really important question. But with indefinite detention, it's the same thing. Imagine the Japanese Americans. Imagine Richard Jewell. Anybody remember Richard Jewell? He was the supposed Olympic bomber. Everybody thought he was guilty. He was convicted on every network. In 10 minutes, he was convicted. Turns out he didn't do it. But then imagine that Richard Jewell was a black man in 1920. He wouldn't have lasted a day. We did some bad things in our history, and I think if we become that party that defends justice, the right to a trial by jury, the right not to be detained without a charge, maybe we become the party that African Americans will look to as a defender of justice, remembering that time. Think of it, we get 25% of the Jewish vote. Most Jewish people can remember a time when they weren't treated very fairly, not necessarily by our government, but by governments throughout history. I think if we are that party that defends justice, I think maybe we can get people to open up to us, because we've got to have more people. We can't just get a few more white people to vote, and we've got to get more of every race. I tell people we've got to have a party that looks like the rest of America, with ties, without ties, with tattoos, without tattoos. Ponytails, without ponytails, with earrings, we've got to have a more diverse party. We have to look like the rest of America. It also means we have to attract people from the working class, not just the business class. How do we attract people from the working class? We say we're not for bailing out banks when they fail. If the banks fail, they should suffer the repercussions of it. And a guy making $100 million a year on Wall Street, if his bank goes bankrupt, he should make $100 million next year. We shouldn't have CEOs bailing out of Wall Street banks with $70 million parachutes when their bank goes bankrupt. I think if we were that party, and it didn't appear as if we were just the party that favored the rich, I think all of a sudden the working class would look to us as well. Right after the Boston bombing, I was at a charity fundraiser in Louisville, and a Boston policeman came, and he was there when the bomb went off. And he said it was terrible. It was like, it was like a war zone. There were limbs strewn everywhere. People were dying. There was blood everywhere. And he was trying to apply tourniquets and trying to save lives. And he described the immediacy of that horror, of seeing all of that and thinking, what kind of person thinks they can advance their religion or their political ideology by killing women and children and civilians. It's just, it really is incomprehensible. And even from a logical point of view, they're not helping their cause, they're hurting their cause to do this, to kill women and children. He talked about the ensuing, chase to get the other killers, the shooting of the one bomber, and then the capture of the other brothers. But once he was captured and disarmed, he said something that I think is pretty important, and something we have to remember when we get angry about bad people, because I'm angry about them too. But at the same time, he said what separates us from them, he said we didn't drag, when we get caught and disarmed, we didn't drag him through the streets and beat him to death with tire irons. He's going to get a trial. Now some say, he's just a terrorist, send him to Guantanamo Bay. He's going to get a trial. He's going to get a lawyer, and in all likelihood he'll be convicted. But I think we can be proud, not only convicting him because he's in all likelihood guilty, but proud that we did a trial, and that's what separates us from them. And I think if we can believe in issues like that, if we can have the passion of the Bill of Rights, the passion of Patrick Henry, I think we can be a big party again. When I think about what we need to infuse our party and make us the dominant party in America again, I think of a painter by the name of Robert Henry. And he said to young painters, he said, paint like a man coming over the hill singing. We need that passion, but also that optimism. If we bring that to our party, I think we'll be the dominant party again. Thank you very much.